Welcome to Tales from the Trenches, Season 4. Today, I have Michelle Benson with me.
Here's a story of a fundraiser who was launching his very own web show. Each episode is very short due to edits, so it can really flow. Here's a story of a podcast guest star who was busy raising money of their own. They were each great in their own way, fundraising in the zone. Till the one day when Jack asked a guest to join him, and they knew it was much more than a jest, that these guests must somehow form a resource. That's the way they all became the podcast guests. The podcast guests. The podcast guests. That's the way they became the podcast guests.
Michelle Benson helps nonprofits to find and be found by funders on LinkedIn. By teaching fundraisers, CEOs, communications teams, trustees, and fundraising consultants how to use LinkedIn strategically, she enables organizations to connect with the most difficult-to-reach prospects: companies, trust funds, philanthropists, and their advisors, helping them achieve their fundraising targets. The offline world often keeps organizations from connecting with funders, but the online world is designed to connect you without barriers, if you know how to navigate it. Michelle has developed a simple and highly effective strategy for nonprofits to tap into LinkedIn's vast funding network without resorting to cold messaging or spending hours on content creation. With 30 years of fundraising experience, including roles as both a fundraiser and a funder, Michelle now focuses on teaching organizations worldwide how to use LinkedIn effectively. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you very much for inviting me.
I read a stat somewhere that said a college graduate today will go through 7 or 8 careers in their life, not just jobs, right? So they might be a painter, then they'll be an accountant, and then they'll be a teacher, and blah, 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 blah. So each of those is a very different kind of circle of influence. So, in LinkedIn, you don't really want to drop people per se, but it becomes a professional thing as opposed to Facebook, which is just a pile of friends. So how do you kind of fine tune it as time goes on when you're changing what your profession is?
I think you just change. I mean, you've just made a massive assumption. You don't want to drop people on LinkedIn. Why not? That's
true.
An assumption.
Yes.
So first of all, the algorithm just wants your attention. And so imagine if I was playing tennis every Friday at 6:00. And so if you go to the tennis club at 6:00 on a Friday, you're going to run into me. So if ever you want to run into me, go to the tennis club on 6:00 on Friday. I'm going to be there, right? And then I decided, tennis is far too much effort. I'd rather go to the pub. Sod this for luck. I'm down to the pub. So now, if you go to the pub on 6:00 on a Friday, that's where I'm going to be, not at the tennis club anymore. Are you going to still go to the tennis club just hoping I might be there? Might change your mind. You think, well, she's at the pub, go to the pub. That's exactly, the algorithm has zero emotion. So it just goes, you've changed. So for example, if I change job and tomorrow said to LinkedIn, updated my LinkedIn profile and said, I'm now an accountant for accountants specialists, it would then start sending me recommendations to connect to a load of accountant specialists. And then once on LinkedIn, I start stopping more on accountancy now, much more than fundraising, it's going to go, oh, you're interested in accountancy now, not fundraising? Great, just send you accountancy stuff. So it just wants my attention. And whatever I tell it, or however I act, is what it's going to give me more of. And so basically, I think the maximum is still 30,000 direct connections you're allowed. Most people don't have anywhere near that. So even if I changed my job 3 or 4 or 5 times in the next 10 years, I probably won't hit that ceiling. And if I did hit that ceiling, I could then go and, disconnect from people. And even if I disconnected, let's say you and I were connected, and I decided to disconnect from you, so I'm no longer connected. If you ended up in my newsfeed and I stopped the scroll, next time you post, there's an 80% chance that you will go into my newsfeed because I stopped the scroll on your stuff. And also the other thing I think is people assume if you follow someone, you see all their stuff. You don't. So, which is frustrating. But
Yes.
you could follow me and I could post tomorrow, but I won't necessarily go into your newsfeed because it will be prioritizing what you've been stopping on and, and it also does this thing called relevancy. It decides whether what I posted about was something you would find relevant.
Right. So what about what do they call it? The premier level, like the pay LinkedIn. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it?
I think if you have no strategy and you're treating it like a directory or I just put like unpaid. I always call most posts unpaid ads. I'm thrilled to announce that we've got a new donor. I'd really like to thank. So last night we had an event. All those kind of like no one really cares. You're just putting out that's so if you're just posting that kind of stuff and you're not getting really any engagement whatsoever, you have no strategy, and you don't really understand the platform. I certainly wouldn't be paying for premium subscriptions. If you have a goal, you have a strategy, you understand the platform, you want to use it purposefully, then premium absolutely oils the wheels. It gives you more connections, it gives you better analytics, it gives you more visibility on who's visited your profile. It does all these other things. Because you're using it strategically, it's worth it. And with my students, what I always say to them, though, is everything I teach on my course, I focus on people using the free version. And what I say to people is use the free version at least for 3 weeks, then take out the premium, get the 3 months, but don't go straight to the free trial. Use it as a free product, then go for the trial. So then you've got a basis of comparison. And in England, it's about £45 a month to have premium. And what most of my students do is then go and look at all the subscriptions that they've, how many subscriptions do you have that you absolutely, we've all got them, right? So it's like, if you could, so just cancel those 3 subscriptions that you've never read those magazines in the last 1 year. You haven't read it for a year. You're not going to read it for the next year. So there's always ways to free up money that way as well.
Right. It's interesting. I think that LinkedIn changed. They used to have views as one of the stats, and I think now they call it impressions, right?
Yeah.
Which, if you scroll by, if you're slow enough, it counts as an impression. So it really screws up the numbers because I have no idea what 5,000 impressions, like, what does that mean? I like the old day where it was kind of views and you knew exactly who was clicking on it. Because, it's like you drive by on the road and you see McDonald's billboard and they'll say, oh, it gets 5 million impressions a year. Okay, I can't translate that. It's not cause and effect.
No, I think what you do though is this is the problem. If you go, well, I just post in a blue moon, and I want to see it. But well, posting in a blue moon, you're not doing anything strategically anyway. And so even if you said I post once a week or I post every 2 weeks or whatever it is, so you go right. So I post 3 times a week. I post Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as a general rule of thumb. So I post 3 times a week, and even though one post got like 100,000 impressions, which means it's gone into 100,000 news feeds. So there's an opportunity for 100,000 people to see it. But not everybody was on LinkedIn that day. Not everybody stopped the scroll. Not everybody hit see more. So it wasn't like 100,000 people saw it. It went into 100,000 news feeds. And so then I put out another post which got 75,000 impressions, and another one that got about 80. So it just gives me a rule of, so when you put it in amongst when you put it up against others, and you might have one that's got like 5,000 impressions. So if I've got a couple of like 80, 75, 100 impressions, and I got one with 5,000 impressions, I don't need the nth degree of the number to know that the 5,000 one was not as well received as the 100,000 one. Right. So, if I'm going for engagement. So, but if I'm going for conversion, and so I'm not there just to engage the audience. I'm actually going, hi, please visit my website and sign up for my webinar, or literally sort of asking the audience of something. Then I know that direct ask is going to have less engagement than an engaging post. So now I expect the impressions to shrink right down. That will be a fact. But I'm not really worried about that. What I'm worried about is I go to my website and see how many people have clicked on through to my website. So I'm never really worried about the likes and the comments and the I've always got a goal behind it should be driving. So with my students, for example, I'm always like, how many profile views did you get? How many direct messages did you get? How many people has your website views gone up? So it's like, what's it driving? Not just likes and comments are important, because likes and comments help the distribution. The algorithm go, oh, people love this, I'll share it with a lookalike audience. So it kind of helps the spread of your content. But actually, you should be more interested in, what's happening on the back. What action are you getting out of something? It's like going to a networking event. It's great to meet everybody. It's great to talk to everybody. It's great to collect all those business cards. But is anyone going to return your call after it? Is anyone going to agree to a follow-up meeting? That's what you really want out of a networking event, right? Not just, I went to a networking event. It was really great. I talked to everybody. Everybody loved me. Yeah, nothing happened after that.
Michelle, this has been absolutely inspiring. I didn't get to one of the questions I originally was going to ask. But I think that our topic, nevertheless, was fascinating. If folks wanted to get hold of you, I'm assuming LinkedIn is the perfect place to do it.
Never on it. No. LinkedIn is perfect. Michelle Benson on LinkedIn, definitely. And/or Culture of Philanthropy is my website.
Amazing. Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Great to be here, Jack. Thank you so much for the invitation.